This is all about the comics culture. So let's talk about comics cancel culture. Let's talk about Tom King and Jay Lee. So I'm going to break it down. The story was this. What is it? Okay. So Tom King put out a tweet. He said, hey, man, I noticed that there's a new new cover to my Rorschach book by Jay Lee. I know that Jay Lee is also doing an alternate cover on a Comicsgate book that will remain nameless. And I don't like that. I wish he didn't do it, and just sort of put it out there. The reaction was not what he expected to be, as people said, well, what the heck? You know, like Jay Lee, he's not political. He's not on Twitter. Nobody sees him. He instantly responded saying, oh, I reached out to Jay Lee. He's not political. He didn't know about that stuff. Best possible outcome is what he said in the tweet. Everything's good. Jay Lee immediately responded, no outcome. What? It's not all good. Like, you just went out and said a lot of stuff about me in public that can and probably will damage my commercial prospects for years to come. I want to go around the table and just quickly get your take on this. I want to start with Adam. Adam, tell me what's your take on this? Should Tom have reached out to Jay Lee first before tweeting?
I mean, kinda, yeah. I mean, it was. We all have to. Most of comics is run by freelancers, and those freelancers get to choose who they work with, but they also have to be grateful for the work they get. So as a result of that, both of these men are either freelancers. They may be on exclusives, but the truth of the matter is that they're dealing with some of the same problems and wrestling with the same issues. And some of those are ethical, some of them are moral. And to make the decision for myself means that I have to make that same decision for you. That always sits hard with me. So I think at the end of the day, did Tom go a little harder than he should have? I think so. And did Jay handle it right? I think so. I think he said, look, I made the decision for one reason. You don't seem to understand why that reason was. And the truth of the matter is you pulled me into this on one of the worst possible days of my life. So why don't you leave me alone? I think it's fair.
Yeah. Brandon, what's your take on it?
My take in general is kind of along the lines of what we saw from Gail Simone and Mark Russell when the Dynomite stuff happened, that this is sort of like a long tail of, but there was demands that they make statements immediately. And what they first came out with was, look, there's a lot of things happening in this situation, a lot of different people involved in this situation. I'm going to talk with people and I will say something, but after I know what I give as a statement can actually carry the weight of what I believe. And I think in that case too, like Tom King really needed to kind of take that time to sort of, all right, so I see this, now let me actually see if that's accurate portrayal of the situation that's happening. Okay. You know, you just look into the things and quite honestly, look into whoever you take money from. That I always do.
Okay, due diligence.
Yeah.
So, Eric Reynolds, what's your take on this? Preferably hot.
I hope Tom King was not as trigger happy when he was working for the CIA in Afghanistan.
Could this be a secret black ops operation? Is this the deep state at work? Bill Schanes, what's your thoughts on this issue?
Well, I'm not going to talk about Tom King or Jay Lee specifically, but there appears to me to be in many areas in the age of Twitter and the rush to break a news story or make a name for yourself, the fact-finding piece of it just seems to be missing almost entirely, or the partial truths have blurred the lines for me quite a bit. So just as I've almost completely stopped watching all media for so-called political news, because they're all paid off by corporations, I find that the comic news sites, for the most part, very challenging to digest when it comes to these hot topics, because oftentimes there's just not good research done to support positions. Sometimes It's beautiful, and I love that. In this particular situation, there was a rush statement, there was some folly, and of course, Twitterland takes it off and makes it go crazy. and you can't. The cat's out of the bag, and you can't put it back in.
Heidi, what do you think about that? Comics journalism. How do you plan to cover this story?
We actually have not covered this story at the Beat, and which is, I mean, we should have, but it kind of broke over the weekend. I do take weekends off from the internet, as does most of my staff, actually, because that's just how we work. I mean, this was a story that I might have rushed back to my keyboard for, but it's 97 degrees here. I don't move too fast. But also I detest hot takes, and so in writing a story about anything, I just not how my mind works. I like to know what happened really, and there's such a game of telephone with everything. Like, I mean, if there's one thing I've learned in my time on Earth here, is that people get garbled messages the more they get passed along. So I think. But to Bill's point, we have this whole Twitter world where there is no telephone. It's the Twitter phone, so there's no misinterpreting what people said on Twitter. You can just go read it yourself. So in some ways we've eliminated that uncertainty. And, I don't know if there's cancel culture, but I will tell you this, there is call out culture on Twitter for sure. And, I think that's what Tom was doing. He was using the tools of call-out culture, like which, by the way, this would not have happened. This is a pandemic tale. If we were all at a convention, I'm sure someone would have talked to Tom King, and he would have been, man, I'm really hot about that Jay Lee cover. And then, maybe he would have told me that. And then I would have been over by Jay Lee's. I said, Jay, if you talk to Tom, I mean, what's going on here? And then they would have been at a big dinner, and everything never would have reached Twitter. Right? This would have been how people did things in the days when they met face to face and shook hands. So, so Tom was kind of doing what many people do. And I think for someone in his position, which is a very powerful, privileged position, probably it wasn't the right way to handle it. He has resources. He has access to resources. He was in the CIA. You can't find out what if Jay Lee's on Twitter. I mean, come on, man. Come on, man. So anyway, I mean, I think he had access. I don't fault his not wanting someone who's Comicsgate to see to these people to do a cover for the book. He handled it in a way that a lot of people handle things, and for someone in his position, it wasn't the right way to handle it. So, but then I think I will say this. There's a lot more to this story than we've seen on Twitter.
What
That's
does Alan Morrison
instinct? Yes. Oh, what the smartest man on earth? It doesn't go online.
Well, we've got another hot button issue of the week that dovetails nicely with this. Unfortunately, right? The Dynomite implosion. So let's talk about this one too. This is another Comicsgate related kerfuffle. Okay, so this dude Cecil made a really ugly looking alternate cover that had his character and Vampirella and Red Sonja. It's very poorly drawn on top of just being kind of blah. But he made the deal. Like, Dynomite signed it, said, okay, you can pay Dynomite to make alternate covers. I could call Dynomite right now and make a Dan Shaheen alternate. It's in the works, by the way. It's coming. So I could do that. Anybody
shot covers. I can help you with that.
Okay. But there was a cry out about this, about what the creators that work at Dynomite are like, what? No way. We don't want our work associated anything to do with Comicsgate. Frankly, I have a hard time blaming them, especially after seeing the reactions and some of the stuff that went on this week in the wake of this thing that I don't want to even get into. It's so ugly. I was one who had a really open mind to Comicsgate in the beginning, but I've just come around to think it's just tainted. As a commercial brand, it's completely tainted and useless, and it's counterproductive. But in this circumstance, let's talk about just alternate covers in general. The fact that anybody can do it. Where do you draw the line? Was this the right decision of Dynomite, who decided to listen to their creative teams and stop this thing from happening? I'll start with Bill, who I know really doesn't like this stuff either, but I'm interested in what you have to say about it.
Well, first of all, I should preamble by saying that Nick Berushi, the publisher and owner of Dynomite, Very creative guy, very energetic. He and I have a long history of not getting along very well together. So just for the sake of saying that up front. In this particular case, I will say Nicky has historically been very in touch with the creators in this industry. Very knowledgeable. He knows what's going on. So I was a little disappointed when he was kind of caught off guard that he was supporting a Comicsgate thingy, because he knows all the players. He just does. And he's been supporting it for quite some time. I read his statements afterward, his company statement about we want to support blah, blah, blah. It wasn't necessarily an apology, it's just a statement. And that was fine. My belief forever is there's way too many alternative covers. We don't need them. An alternative cover should be for a special issue. When I was at Diamond for 10 years, I was saying to publishers, which no one listened from up and down, that, a number 1, maybe have an extra cover, a number 25, a number 50, number 100, but not number 2 through 24. A number 500, that can be a special cover. Number 1,000, that's deserving. That's a rare celebration.
That ship has sailed, right? Alternate covers, for good or for ill, are a big, big, big part of this industry now, and I don't see it going away anytime soon.
It's a poison that ultimately will cost us readership. It just will.
I think it probably already has to some degree. Brandon, what's your take on the Dynomite implosion?
Well, I guess my little preamble too is the store is called Variant Edition. We don't do a whole lot of variants. It's to talk the language outside when somebody goes, "Oh, Variant Edition, what does that mean?" You go, "Well, a variant is a different cover with the same contents on the inside. We're a comic store, but we're a little different." It's a nice way to pitch it. Now, for the Dynomite stuff, it really does come down to me, the ideas of always look into who you're working with and why you're working with them. I honestly, personally, don't believe there's a situation where I would take that kind of money from that kind of group. Saying so in the past has definitely caused problems for the store with said people. But like the worst thing, at the same time, the store got broken into. I don't like the timing of that, but that's about the extent of it. And then the other worst thing that came out of that was some dude who came in and ended up spending $100 in the store to own us, which was fantastic. Do it again, whatever. But the rest of it was just words. And
does this affect your support of Dynomite products? How is it going to affect your orders, if at all?
So I have a blanket policy for situations like this. I've done it for different creators in the past. We will always endeavor to get the products that people are looking for. If they ask for it and we can get it in, we will get it in for you, no problem. We even offer a prepay system that makes it cheaper. If you want to pay for it up front, we don't have to worry about stocking it guessing to stock it on the shelf. That's a win-win for both of us. But I reserve the right to not hand sell your book anymore. And in that same token, for my shop, that is the difference between tens and hundreds, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. The support, your support behind the product. This is a hot button issue for Eric Reynolds, who he didn't want to talk about the 8-ball variant edition comic month. So instead, we'll go to Adam. Adam, if one of your clients, you've got publishers among your clients as well as retailers, I know. If one of them came to you and asked for your advice, if Nick Barucci was your client, I don't know if he is or has been one of your clients, but if they had gone to you and asked for your advice in this scenario, what advice would you have given him?
You know what? At the end of the day, the rest of the industry could die. Diamond could just go away. The rest of the publishers might be there. Nikki and like there'll be after the thermonuclear war, it'll be Nikki and an army of trained cockroaches selling comics. They're just the man will not. He's not going to stop. Right. He is going to continually move and play. And I think that's I think Bill is right in that he has shown more savvy than this in the past. But I also think that for him, in the same way you were wanting to give. Not unless it necessarily kill a voice just because you disagreed with it. I think that's where he comes from. And so I think he was trying to walk that line. The truth of the matter is these covers are incredibly lucrative. They're lucrative for publishers. They're lucrative for the retailers that are doing them. In many cases, they're lucrative for the fans. Now, are they making readership? I don't really know, but intuitively, I bump up against the idea that it's killing readership. I hate this is twice in the same show that I'm disagreeing with Bill, but I think that there's
never a good thing, by the way.
Believe me, I don't feel like I'm on firm ground at the moment, but I can tell you that right this second, I don't think we have not only the right, but I don't even think it's a good idea to limit the number of lucrative things that our stores can do and that our publishers can do. And if the fans are out there to buy it, who am I to tell those consumers that they're somehow wrong in wanting this cover? It just doesn't feel right to me.
Honestly, that's kind of where I come from on it as well, is that Dynomite, no matter what they're publishing, they're not making tons of money hand over fist. I know that, and anything where they could do to improve their profits and profit margins makes sense from that perspective. But I would say not understanding the negative effects that, it wasn't just making this alternate cover. It was appearing in a Comicsgate live stream and tweeting support in that stream that was screen capped and used against Dynomite. Now, I'm in contact with Dynomite. I've got some upcoming interviews with some Dynomite creators. I don't see anything wrong with associating with Dynomite, especially since I think they made the correct move in hindsight. I agree completely with what Bill said, and that he obviously did know better, probably should have known better. But I think the financial motive is tough to ignore in these times. It's really tough.